Why did her hands start shaking the moment the radio crackled, after 3 long years of silence? Laura Sheffield stood in the cold morning light, the autumn air crisp enough to sting her lungs with every breath. The axe in her hands rose again, muscles tense, ready to split the heavy log on the chopping block. She'd been at it for hours, long enough for sweat to collect along her hairline despite the mountain chill. Physical work was the only thing that kept her memories quiet. Keep the body moving, and maybe the mind wouldn't wander. But then the sound came. A whisper of static from inside the cabin. Barely anything, just a crackle, but her pulse snapped awake like someone had pressed a finger to an old wound. She lowered the axe, very slowly. For a moment she waited, telling herself it was nothing, just interference, just weather, just anything else. Then the voice arrived, young, strained, barely holding itself together. Any station, this is Bravo 2 Actual, we have a situation." The axe slipped from her hand and thudded into the dirt. She didn't move, didn't breathe. "Not yet." The voice came again, cutting through the static with raw desperation. Coordinates, contact, hostiles, pinned down. Laura's chest tightened until she could barely inhale. No. Not again. She forced herself toward the cabin, legs moving faster than her thoughts. Inside, the old military radio sat where she'd left it years ago, on a dusty shelf beside field guides, a mug full of dried pens, and a photograph she never looked at anymore. She lifted the radio gently, as if it were a live explosive. Then the second voice broke through, calm, professional. "Sierra 17 copies, QRF spinning up, ETA 45 to 60 minutes. And the younger voice, barely containing fear. "Negative Sierra 17, we don't have 60 minutes. 10 maybe before they're on top of us. We need immediate." Static swallowed the rest. Laura closed her eyes. Her breath trembled as she inhaled. 45 minutes. In Broken Ridge Canyon, she knew that place better than most. The extraction timeline wasn't realistic. Not with those ridges, not with that terrain. Whoever those Marines were, they were on their own. She set the radio down like it might burn her. This was not her problem. She buried that life, buried the uniform, buried the rifle, buried the version of herself who used to run toward gunfire. That Laura died 3 years ago on a rooftop overseas with a man she should have brought home. She walked to the window and stared at the endless peaks of the Cascade Ridge Mountains. Early snow dusted the highest summits, pines swayed softly. The world was silent, peaceful. Peace she'd fought so hard for. But the radio erupted again. "Marin, they're moving up the western slope. I count 8, maybe 10. A woman's voice, professional but terrified. Laura's fingers curled against the windowsill. "Not your fight. Not your responsibility. Not again, never again." But her feet were already moving. She didn't command them. They simply obeyed an instinct older than fear, older than guilt. Before she realized it, she was pulling open her bedroom closet. Her breath hitched when she saw the duffel bag pushed to the back beneath boxes and blankets. She froze. "No," she whispered to herself. "Not again, I can't." But her hands didn't listen. They pulled the duffel out. Her heart hammered as she unzipped it. The scent hit her first, gun oil, metal, worn canvas. Her Marine uniform, folded with precision she once took pride in. Under it the tactical vest, ammunition, scope. And wrapped in an old oilcloth, the M40A6 sniper rifle. Her rifle. She stared at it. The weight of everything she'd tried to forget pressed down on her chest until she could barely breathe. The therapist's words echoed painfully. "You're not broken, Laura. You just need to give yourself permission to stop fighting." But some battles never stopped. The radio screamed again, panic, shouting, movement, and something inside her cracked. Her trembling hands closed around the familiar steel. The rifle felt like coming home to a memory she didn't want but could never escape. Her phone buzzed. Tyler. Her brother. She answered without thinking. "Please tell me you're not listening to that frequency," he said, no greeting, no hesitation, like he already knew the war had found her again. How? Her voice was raw. "Because I'm listening to it too. And I know you, Laura. I know that part of you is still alive. Don't do this." She closed her eyes. "I have to," she whispered. "No, you don't. There are Marines trapped in Broken Ridge. They'll die before the QRF gets there." A long, heavy silence stretched across the line. "Then, how long would it take you?" 15 minutes if I push through Miller's Pass. I can reach a vantage point in 25. "You're insane," he said softly. "But I know that tone. I know when your mind is made up." Her breathing steadied. "I need you to coordinate with local enforcement. Call Deputy Cole, Captain Moore, anyone who will listen. You're asking me to help you break the law. I'm asking you to help me save their lives." Another silence, then. 5 minutes, that's all I need. Don't die, Laura." "I'll try." She hung up. The weight of the rifle settled onto her shoulder, not crushing, not painful. Just real. She left the cabin without looking back, because if she did, she might lose her nerve. The Jeep roared to life, gravel spitting behind the tires as she sped toward the trailhead. 6 minutes later, she was sprinting up the narrow trail through Miller's Pass, her breath burning, her boots pounding rock and soil she knew by heart. Wind rushed over the ridges, the forest thinned. Her mind switched, sniper mode activating with terrifying ease. Calculate elevation. Wind speed, mild westward cross. Distance to vantage, 900 meters. Time to set up, minimal. No fear. No hesitation. Only the mission. Only the lives. Only the ghosts following her up the mountain. She crested the ridge and slid into position behind a cluster of boulders overlooking Broken Ridge Canyon. She dropped to her stomach, extended the bipod, and brought the scope to her eye. Her breath caught. 5 Marines. Pinned behind rocks far too small to provide real protection, bodies pressed low, weapons drawn, running low on ammunition. Around them, 15 armed men moving with practiced lethality. Professionals. Not panicked criminals. Not amateurs. No. These were hunters, and the Marines were prey. Laura's heartbeat slowed. Her breathing eased until it was barely there at all. She dialed the elevation. Adjusted for wind. Tracked movement. But then her breath froze. One of the Marines shifted, giving Laura a clear view of her face through the scope. Young. Dark hair tucked under her helmet. Determined eyes. Laura's stomach twisted violently. Madison Harper. Danny's little sister. The girl who'd sat in the front row at his funeral, folded flag in her lap, silent grief carved into her face. Laura's hands trembled so hard she had to pull them off the trigger. Her heartbeat was suddenly loud, too loud. Not her. Not here. Not again. She forced herself to breathe, forced her body to obey. The hostiles were closing in. Time was gone. She whispered a name she hadn't spoken in years, voice breaking as it left her. "Danny, forgive me." She steadied the scope, chose her target, and pulled the trigger. The first shot echoed across the canyon like thunder. Then the second. Then chaos erupted below. Laura Sheffield was a sniper again. Why did the canyon suddenly fall silent the moment she fired, like the world itself was holding its breath? The echo of the second shot rolled across the stone walls, bouncing through the canyon's narrow throat. Dust lifted off broken rock as 2 hostile silhouettes crumpled, lifeless puppets with their strings severed. For a heartbeat, Just one. Everyone below froze. The Marines ducked lower instinctively. Eyes wide, confusion etched across every face. The smugglers whipped their heads upward, scanning the ridgelines in panic jerks. They hadn't expected resistance. Not like this. Not death coming from 800 meters out with surgical precision. Laura didn't have time to savor the advantage. Her instincts surged faster than adrenaline. Elevate scope. Adjust wind call. Track movement. Predict behavior. She breathed once, slow and controlled, a steadying ritual carved into her bones over years of combat, and fired her third shot. Target down. A fourth hostile attempted to reposition behind a larger outcrop, but he made the fatal mistake of exposing his shoulder. The round hit him so cleanly that the recoil moved his body back before gravity pulled him down. Chaos erupted. The remaining smugglers scattered toward partial cover, shouting orders that blurred into an indistinct roar over the mountainside wind. Their formations broke instantly. Professionals or not, nobody trained to fight a ghost. The Marines stayed low, motionless. Except one. Madison Harper tilted her head, eyes narrowing, almost searching the ridge, as if she felt something, sensed someone. Laura swallowed the knot rising in her throat. Not now, don't lose focus. She shifted position slightly, careful to keep the muzzle hidden behind a shadowed lip of stone. The canyon sunlight was bright, but the angle kept her well concealed. Then her radio crackled. Bravo 2, QRF inbound, 3 minutes out. Hold your position. Unknown shooter, if you can hear us, keep doing what you're doing. Captain Moore's voice was steady, almost calm. A rock Laura hadn't expected to lean on. She didn't respond, but the acknowledgement mattered. Someone knew help was coming, and someone knew she was out here, even if only as a phantom. Her scope locked on another hostile attempting to flank the Marines from the eastern slope. He moved quickly, but too predictably. Laura exhaled, squeezed. The shot struck him center mass. 8 hostiles left. 7. 6. Each shot a quiet apology to ghosts she carried. She didn't kill to punish, didn't kill to prove she still could. She killed because timing was life, and life was a fragile thing trapped in the chaos below. Her breathing slowed to something almost unnatural. Her body drifted into the cold, detached calm she hadn't felt since Afghanistan, a place where decisions were clean, math was clear, and emotion was a luxury she couldn't afford. She almost hated how easily it came back to her. A shout pulled her attention. The smugglers were retreating, dragging their wounded with them toward a vehicle hidden beneath a canopy of pine. 2 figures stayed behind, a senior-looking man giving hand signals, and beside him, a woman who looked terrified and horribly out of place in all of this. Laura hesitated. She could end the man with one clean shot. But something in the woman's eyes stopped her. Fear, not of the fight but of the man beside her, someone trapped in something bigger than she could escape. Laura's finger relaxed off the trigger. A choice, a human choice. She allowed them to flee. The rotors arrived then, 2 helicopters sweeping low over the ridge, wind whipping the treetops into chaotic motion as dust swirled across the canyon floor. Marines rappelled down ropes, shouting commands, securing the perimeter, pulling the injured to safety. Laura exhaled. It was done. Her hands suddenly trembled, not from fear, but from the release of control she had forced on herself. Sniper calm always came with a cost. Coming down from it was like a free fall, an invisible crash she felt deep in her bones. She began breaking down her position with mechanical precision. Clear brass, fold bipod, retract scope, erase footprint, brush over disturbed soil. She cleaned up sniper nests in war zones faster than this, but this wasn't war. This was home. And she didn't want anyone to know she'd been here. When she finished, Laura took one last look down into the canyon. Madison Harper was being helped into a med vehicle. She had a small cut on her cheek, nothing life-threatening, but she looked shaken, pale, and far too young for the haunted expression in her eyes. For one moment, Madison paused, glancing toward the ridgeline. She didn't know who had saved her. Not yet. Laura whispered into the quiet wind. I'm sorry, Danny. I'm so damn sorry. Then she disappeared into the trees. By the time she reached her jeep, her legs felt heavier. The adrenaline had seeped out, replaced by the cold, draining aftermath she remembered all too well. She drove the winding forest road back to her cabin, every sharp turn echoing the tightness in her chest. Her phone buzzed the moment she parked. Tyler, she answered before the second ring. Tell me that wasn't you, he said. It was me. A long, defeated groan came through the line. Laura, you realize what you just did? Yes. You realize people will look for you? Yes. And that you just inserted yourself into an active federal investigation. She closed her eyes. Ty, 5 Marines would be dead. Silence. Then quietly. I know, just come home, get inside, lock your door, I'll call you soon. The line went dead. Laura walked into her cabin and immediately collapsed into the chair beside her kitchen table. Her lungs felt tight, breath shallow. She pressed the heel of her hands to her eyes. The memories from that rooftop overseas tried to claw their way back into her mind. Not now, not right now. She needed to stay sharp, needed to clean the rifle, needed to. The radio on her shelf hissed with life again. Unknown shooter, this is Captain Vincent Moore. If you can hear me, thank you. We will find you. His voice wasn't a threat. It was a promise layered with something else. Respect, curiosity, maybe even concern. Laura reached for the radio. Her thumb brushed the transmit button. Then stopped. She placed it gently back down. No, she wasn't ready. She wasn't sure she ever would be. She spent an hour cleaning the rifle at her kitchen table, each movement grounding her. Barrel, bolt, chamber, oil, wipe, reassemble. She wrapped it in the oilcloth again and placed it back in the duffel bag she told herself she would never open again. She stood in front of the mirror. A stranger stared back. Not the wilderness guide. Not the Marine sniper. Something in between. Someone she didn't fully understand yet. A knock at her door nearly made her heart stop. Too soon, too quiet, not Tyler. She silently reached for the pistol hidden behind the doorframe. A familiar voice called from outside. Laura, open up, it's me. Tyler. Her grip loosened just a little. She opened the door. Her brother stepped in with a look she couldn't quite read, part fear, part anger, part relief. You okay? He asked. No, she admitted, but I will be. Tyler nodded slowly. Then sit down, because we need to talk, and you're not going to like what I'm about to say. Laura swallowed. What is it? You were seen, he said quietly, and someone out there knows exactly who you are. Her blood ran cold. He continued. And they're coming. Why did Tyler look like he was carrying someone else's fear? Someone who'd already seen the storm coming long before she did. Laura's breath stalled in her chest, caught between instinct and the slow, creeping dread building in her gut. Tyler shut the cabin door behind him carefully, as if afraid that even the sound of wood meeting might alert someone lurking outside. She could feel the shift immediately. This wasn't her brother visiting with frustration or worry. This was Tyler, the deputy sheriff, the man who'd seen violence crawl into quiet places and poison them from the inside. He sat across from her at the small dining table. His uniform was dusted with pine needles, shirt pulled loose at the collar, stress lining the edges of his eyes. You were seen, he repeated, voice low. Laura's fingers curled against the table. By who? That's the problem, Tyler said. We aren't totally sure, but one of the Marines reported movement on the ridge after the firefight. Said she saw a silhouette, long gun, low stance, sniper posture. Her heartbeat thudded hard enough that she felt it in her throat. Madison. It had to be Madison. Tyler rubbed his face with both hands. And if she saw you, she'll tell her co. Hell, she probably already did. Laura swallowed the rising panic. That doesn't mean they know it was me. Tyler met her eyes with something grim. They identified the weapon signature. She froze. What? The M40A6. Only so many of those ever saw Marine Corps field use. They still have ballistic databases from the Afghanistan years. And your rifle, it left a record. A damn impressive one. She felt the world tilt beneath her. They weren't guessing. They knew. Tyler leaned back in his chair, his jaw tightening. Vincent Moore put in a request through interagency channels to meet with you. Official, formal, straight from the federal desk. Laura's chest tightened. So they're coming to arrest me. No, he said quickly, not arrest. At least I don't think so. She scoffed bitter. Then what? Give me a pat on the back, a thank you card. Tyler shook his head. They're coming because they want to know why a Marine who disappeared 3 years ago just broke radio silence to save a squad in the mountains. She flinched at the word disappeared. She hadn't disappeared, not really. She just stopped answering, stopped showing up, stopped surviving in any way that resembled living. Tyler's voice softened. They want to talk to you, Laura. They're not the enemy here. She didn't answer. Her mind had already slipped somewhere else, somewhere she fought to avoid. Dust, gunfire, screams. Danny's body beside hers, warm one moment, cold the next. Her hands covered in his blood, whispering his name even after he couldn't hear her anymore. She blinked hard and wiped at her eyes before the tears could fall. Tyler's expression softened even further. I know this is hell. I know what returning to this feels like for you, but running won't fix anything. Laura looked away sharply. It's all I've been doing. And how's that working out for you? The question cut deeper than he meant it to. She stood abruptly and walked to the small window overlooking the pines. Shadows between the trees swayed gently with the breeze, but the silence outside felt heavier than before. Dense, watchful. How much time? She asked quietly. Tyler hesitated. Half an hour, maybe less. Moore's convoy is already on the Old Ridge Road. Her stomach dropped. Half an hour. She had half an hour before she would have to face the past. She had spent 3 years burying beneath solitude. She turned back to him, her voice barely holding steady. What do they want from me? Tyler exhaled slowly. Answers, maybe more. That's not an answer. He met her eyes again. They're looking into the smugglers you engaged. These aren't random criminals. Word is they're connected to something much bigger, cartels crossing into federal land, armed like private military units. They want to know how a lone sniper eliminated half their force in minutes. Laura felt her pulse shift. Cartels. It made sense now. The precision, the formation, the equipment. These weren't panicked wilderness smugglers. They were soldiers in civilian clothing, moving with dangerous purpose. And they'd seen her work. That realization chilled her deeper than the mountain air ever could. Tyler stood and placed a hand on her shoulder. You're not alone in this. I'll stay with you. Let me handle the talking if you want. Laura bit down on the emotion rising in her throat. I don't need protection. His reply was quiet but firm. I'm not protecting you, I'm standing with you. There's a difference. She didn't argue. They heard the engines before they saw the vehicles. Low, controlled, professional. Not a sheriff's cruiser. Not a ranger truck. No. These were federal convoy engines. Laura's heart raced in uneven beats as she stepped onto the porch beside Tyler. The sky above had turned a pale gold. Late afternoon light streaked across the pines, casting long shadows across the dirt driveway. Two black Suburbans rolled to a stop. Four federal agents stepped out, alert but not aggressive. And then one man emerged from the passenger side of the lead vehicle. Captain Vincent Moore. His presence alone filled the clearing. Tall, calm, confident. Not the loud kind of authority, just the steady, controlled quiet of someone who'd carried too many responsibilities for too long. He approached slowly, hands visible, posture non-threatening. "Miss Sheffield." Laura stiffened despite herself. "Captain." Her voice sounded steadier than she expected. Moore studied her with a gaze that saw past the surface. "Before anything else, thank you. You saved my Marines." She said nothing. He continued gently. "They wouldn't be alive without you. Madison Harper wouldn't be alive." Her chest constricted painfully. Danny's little sister. She saw that girl's haunted eyes in her mind. She forced her voice steady. She didn't deserve to die. "No one did," Moore agreed. A quiet pause settled between them. "Then you fired 9 shots in total." 11, she corrected. Moore almost smiled. "We only found 9 impacts. You won't find the last 2. His eyes flicked to Tyler, then back to her. "I'd like to talk to you, not as a threat, not as a superior officer, as someone who needs your help." She crossed her arms, a defensive instinct she didn't bother hiding. "With what?" Moore took a small step closer. "The woman you didn't shoot." Laura froze. Of course he knew. Of course he saw her hesitation on the ballistic logs, the gap in the firing pattern, the absence of a clean shot where one should have been. He lowered his voice. "She wasn't a hostile, she's a missing civilian, kidnapped 2 weeks ago from a highway in Utah. We thought she was dead until you saw her." Cold air filled Laura's lungs. Guilt twisted deeper. Moore watched her carefully. "You hesitated, you saw something in her." Laura turned her head away. "I saw fear." "And fear saved her life," he said quietly. Another wave of silence, heavy, raw. Then Moore's tone shifted, more serious now. "We need your help to find her, and to stop the people who took her." "I'm not joining anything," Laura said sharply. "I'm not asking you to join," he replied. "I'm asking you to finish what you started." Her pulse hammered. Tyler stepped forward. "Captain, she's not." Moore lifted a hand to pause him. His eyes never left Laura's. "You're the only one who can track what happened up there. You know the ridges, the angles, the patterns, and those men will come back. They always do." Laura swallowed. Moore took one final step. "When they return, you need to decide whether you'll be hiding in that cabin." His gaze hardened, not unkind but with gravity. "Or waiting for them." Her breath hitched just a little, because she knew exactly what he meant. And she feared even more that some part of her already knew the answer. Why did his last sentence linger in her mind long after the engines faded, like an echo she wasn't ready to admit she heard? Laura stood on the porch long after the convoy disappeared down the forest road, the quiet settling around her like snowfall. The trees swayed softly in the dusk breeze, but something deeper pressed against her ribs, a familiar heaviness she hadn't felt in years. Not fear. Recognition. Something was coming, something she wasn't sure she could outrun this time. Tyler exhaled beside her. "I don't like this." She didn't answer. "You know what he's doing, right?" he continued. "He's recruiting you, just without the paperwork." She finally turned to him. "I'm not joining anything, Ty." "You already did," he said gently, "the moment you opened that duffel." She flinched. The truth often hurt more than any bullet could. Inside, the cabin felt too small, too quiet. She sat at the kitchen table, the same table she'd cleaned her rifle on just hours before. The duffel bag sat on the floor beside her chair like a sleeping animal, hungry, patient, waiting to be summoned again. Tyler paced the room, rubbing the back of his neck. They're going to want more from you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. I didn't agree to anything. Lore, he stopped packing. Do you really think you can walk away now, after what you did, after they know exactly who you are? She stared at her hands, at the faint calluses that never went away, at the small scar across her knuckle. Afghanistan, 2017, when a fragment of shattered concrete caught her during the siege. She had buried those years, buried the memories, buried Danny. But tonight all of it felt unearthed. I didn't do it for them, she whispered. I know, Tyler said, but you did it. He sat across from her again, his voice softer now. Look, you saved people today. You saved Madison Harper. The name struck her heart like a sledgehammer. She clenched her jaw, fighting the tremor in her voice. She looked just like him, she murmured. The same eyes, the same way she held her rifle even when she was scared. Tyler's face softened with something like grief for her. You couldn't have walked away if you tried. Laura pressed her palms to her eyes. I don't want this life back, she whispered. I can't lose more people. I can't go through that again. You won't, Tyler said firmly, because you're not alone anymore. But she didn't believe that, not yet. And the more she tried to convince herself she had a choice, the more her chest tightened. She stood abruptly. I need air. Tyler didn't stop her. Outside, the cold night air bit at her skin. Fog clung to the base of the pines, creeping through the forest floor in slow, ghost-like tendrils. She walked until the cabin disappeared behind her, until only the forest remained, silent and alive. Her footsteps slowed as she reached the edge of the ridge overlooking the valley. The same ridge she'd taken the shot from. She kneeled in the dirt, running her fingers over the cold ground. The soil was disturbed where her elbows had pressed into it. A faint drag mark where her boot had shifted during recoil. A small depression where her bipod had settled. Traces of a version of her she thought she'd buried. You still know how to disappear, a voice said behind her. Her breath froze. She turned slowly. Captain Vincent Moore stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, posture non-threatening but deliberate. He had come alone. No agents, no lights, just him. How did you? You're a sniper, he replied calmly. So you came back to the nest, to study, to analyze, to relearn. She hated that he was right. He stepped closer, but not too close. Your brother told me where I could find you. He was worried. I didn't ask him to tell you anything. He's looking out for you, Moore said softly, even if you hate the way he's doing it. She rose to her feet slowly. His gaze scanned the ridge carefully, respectfully. This was good work, he murmured. Not just skilled, controlled. You didn't waste a single round. Her jaw tightened. I'm not proud of that. I didn't say you should be proud, he said. I said it was good work. He turned to face her fully then. When I was 19, he said, I froze during my first engagement. Everybody thinks leaders are born brave. They are. Sometimes we learn bravery by surviving our own fear. She didn't respond. She didn't want to be disarmed by empathy, not from him, not from anyone. Moore continued, his voice quiet. Madison asked me who saved them. I told her I didn't know. Her stomach twisted. She said it felt like someone watching over them. Laura swallowed hard. Moore's gaze sharpened, not harsh but aware. Is that why you hesitated with the woman? Laura stiffened. I didn't hesitate. Yes, he said softly, you did, but not out of weakness. She looked away toward the distant tree line. Moore continued carefully. You recognized something in her, something that reminded you of someone. She felt the sting of unshed tears at the corners of her eyes. He noticed, but he didn't comment. Instead he said, Laura, I didn't come back to pressure you. I came back because I need to tell you something before this gets even bigger." Her breath tightened. "What?" Moore lowered his voice. "Those men weren't acting alone. Someone hired them, someone local." She froze. Local. This quiet mountain town, her refuge, her escape. Moore stepped closer, slowly, deliberately. "They were after something," he said, "or someone. They weren't just fleeing." She felt a slow chill crawl up her spine. "What are you saying?" she whispered. Moore met her eyes with a gaze that held no doubt. "I'm saying the attack in the canyon wasn't an isolated incident," he said. "It was the beginning." Her pulse spiked. He added, voice low, "And whoever planned it knows exactly who you are." Laura's breath stilled. A branch snapped somewhere deeper in the woods. Moore's eyes flicked toward the sound instantly, hand moving subtly toward the holster under his jacket. Laura's own instincts flared. The forest went silent. Too silent. Then another snap, closer this time. Moore's voice dropped, barely audible. "We're not alone." Laura took a slow step back, eyes scanning the dark line of pines. The fog shifted unnaturally, and a silhouette emerged. Tall, still, watching. Laura's heart pounded once, hard, every instinct screaming as she whispered, "They found me." Why did the silhouette stand so still, so unnaturally still, like it wasn't a person, but a warning meant only for her? Laura froze, breath shallow, the cold night air stretching thin between her and the trees. Moonlight broke unevenly through the canopy, catching on branches, glinting off fog. But the figure didn't move, didn't shift weight, didn't react. Just watched. Moore's voice slid out barely above a whisper. "Don't run." "I'm not running," she whispered back. "I'm calculating." "Good," he said, "because if they wanted to shoot, we'd already be hit." That was true, and terrifying in its own way. The silhouette remained half-hidden behind a cluster of pines. Laura's sniper instincts mapped its posture, slight forward lean, arms relaxed, not holding a rifle. But something hung from the left hand. Not a weapon, something smaller, rectangular. She squinted. A phone. No, not just a phone. A phone turned toward them. Recording. Laura's pulse hit a new rhythm, a hard, instinctive reminder that danger didn't always come in bullets. Sometimes it came in witnesses. "Moore," she murmured, "someone is documenting this." He nodded once. "I see it." The figure stepped forward one pace, slow, deliberate, letting more moonlight hit its face. Laura inhaled sharply. A teenager. Maybe 17. Eyes wide, jaw trembling. Terror carved across his features like he'd stumbled onto something monstrous. "Wait," Laura muttered. "He's scared." Moore's stance softened a fraction. "Kid, put the phone down." The teen didn't. He just lifted his free hand, shaking badly, as if trying to show he wasn't a threat. I wasn't following you," he stammered. "I swear, I just—" Another branch snapped deeper in the woods. The boy flinched like a gunshot had gone off. Moore's eyes sharpened instantly. "He isn't alone." Laura tensed. "Cover me." She stepped forward slowly, rifle still slung but ready. "Hey," she said softly, "look at me. What's your name?" The boy swallowed hard. Evan." "Evan," she repeated gently. "Who are you out here with?" I didn't come with anyone," he said quickly, too quickly. "I just heard the helicopters earlier, so I went to check the ridge and—" Another sound, closer, heavy, purposeful. Moore's whisper sharpened. "That's not an animal." Laura's heart climbed into her throat. Something was moving through the trees, slow, professional, controlled. Then a shape blurred behind Evan. Laura's hand shot out instinctively. "Evan, DOWN." The boy dropped to his knees as Laura lunged, grabbing his arm and pulling him behind her. A figure burst from the tree line, full sprint, tactical movement, closing distance fast. Moore drew and fired. The shot cracked across the ridge, echoing through the trees, but the figure darted back into the fog, disappearing behind cover after a near miss. Laura's instincts took command. She pushed Evan behind a fallen log. "Stay down, don't move." I didn't," he stammered. "This isn't your fault," she said sharply. "Just stay low." Moore crouched beside her. One hostile confirmed, probably more. Cartel. Movement discipline says yes. Laura's pulse steadied. Her fear never steadied. But her training did. She unslung the rifle, racked a quiet chamber check, and aimed toward the trees. Fog drifted like smoke through the pines. Then footsteps. Several. Slow. Surrounding. Moore whispered, "We need to move. They're trying to flank." Laura's jaw locked. "We can't outrun them uphill, not with a kid." So we make a stand." Moore didn't argue. That told her everything about the situation. He adjusted his stance, weapon ready. 2 moving left, 1 right. "More behind them," Laura added. "I can hear their comms." 15 yards out, he murmured. 10. 5. Laura fired. The recoil slammed into her shoulder, familiar and grounding. A figure stumbled from behind a pine and collapsed. Moore took the second one with a clean centermass shot. Evan let out a startled yelp behind the log. More shadows moved through the trees, too many to count, shifting in the fog like ghosts with weapons. A voice called out from the darkness, Spanish accent thick. "Laura Sheffield." Her stomach dropped. "They know my name," she whispered. Moore's head snapped toward her. "How?" "I don't," her voice cracked. "I don't know." The voice continued, eerie calm spreading through the trees. "You should have left the canyon alone." Leaves rustled, twigs snapped. "You should have stayed hidden." Moore whispered, "They're playing psychological warfare." She ignored him. The voice echoed again. "You took something from us." Laura's breath hitched. The woman. The civilian. The woman she didn't shoot. Moore met her gaze. "This is about the hostage." The voice grew closer. "You saw her. You saw what she tried to do." Laura's blood ran cold. Moore leaned closer. "What did she try to do?" Laura shook her head. "She didn't try anything. She was terrified." The voice in the woods laughed, low and chilling. "You think she wanted to be saved?" Her skin prickled. "She begged us to take her." "No," Laura whispered, "that's a lie." "She begged us to hide her." "That's not true." "She begged us to make her disappear." "Stop," Laura whispered, the words trembling out of her. Moore stepped in front of her protectively. "Laura, don't let them get inside your head." But the voice wasn't talking to Moore. "Laura," it called softly, "you know what it's like to lose someone." Her breath collapsed. Her knees felt weak. Danny's name pressed against the inside of her skull, like a bruise being touched. "But she—" The voice drifted closer. "Lost herself." A dark silhouette appeared between 2 trees. Moore lifted his weapon. "Don't," Laura whispered. "He's using her as leverage. They want me alive." "Alive for what?" "To punish me," she whispered, "for saving someone I wasn't supposed to." Her grip tightened on the rifle. "Moore," she murmured, "take Evan back toward the cabin, quietly. Use the ridge path. They want me, not you." Moore's jaw clenched. "I'm not leaving you." "You need to protect the kid." "He's not my responsibility." "Neither am I." The silhouettes closed in. Fog twisted around them like a living thing. Moore pressed his forehead to hers, just briefly, steadying, grounding. His voice was low, controlled. "Don't you dare decide for me." She exhaled shakily. "Then do it for Danny." That broke him. He cursed under his breath. "Fine," he whispered, "but I'm coming back." "Don't," she said softly. "This part is mine." Moore grabbed Evan and fled through the ridge shadow. Laura stepped into the clearing. Alone. Fog coiled around her ankles. The night held its breath. The cartel commander stepped into view, calm, confident, knowing exactly what she was. She raised her rifle. He smiled slowly. "You should have stayed hidden, sniper." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "I don't hide," she whispered. And she fired. Why did her own gunshot feel quieter than it should have? Like the night swallowed the sound before it ever reached the trees. The cartel commander staggered, a spray of mist lit by moonlight as he fell back into the fog. She didn't wait to watch him hit the ground, because the forest erupted the instant she pulled the trigger. Shouts, footsteps, branches whipping, metal clattering. They were rushing her now. And she was alone. Laura dropped to a knee, pivoted smoothly, and fired again. One hostile dropped. Another flanked left. She rolled behind a fallen stump, felt bark explode near her shoulder as a round slammed into it. They were firing controlled bursts, trained, disciplined, not panicked chaos. She pulled a breath into her lungs, held it, then moved. Her next shot tore through the fog and struck a gunman mid-stride. His body folded silently, but she couldn't celebrate, couldn't pause. Movement sparked to her right. She turned, but a shadow lunged faster than she expected. A body hit her full force. They rolled in the dirt, fighting for the rifle. Her fingers slipped from the grip. A fist slammed into her ribs. She gasped, the air knocked from her lungs. He was strong, too strong. She reached for the knife on her belt. Gone. He pinned her with his forearm against her throat. "You should have left her," he growled in accented English. Her vision dimmed at the edges. Stars sparked. She groped blindly, her fingers brushing something metallic in the dirt. Her scope cover. Not a weapon, not helpful. Her hand swept again, this time finding a jagged piece of broken timber. She didn't hesitate. She drove it upward, burying it into the soft flesh beneath his jaw. He choked, warmth splattering her face, then fell sideways. Laura rolled away, gasping for breath. She heard more footsteps. More voices. She grabbed her rifle and sprinted toward a boulder cluster, slipping behind it just as another round cracked past her ear. Her lungs burned, her ribs throbbed, but her mind stayed cold. Not calm, not safe. Cold. A sniper's cold. 3 men advanced through the fog. She exhaled, slowed her pulse, fired. 1. Recenter. 2. Recenter. 3. Miss. The third man dove behind a tree. She ducked as he fired a blind burst toward her position. Every round snapped past her like angry hornets. She heard him breathing, heavy, fast. He wasn't as trained as the others. She scanned the ground beside her and spotted a smooth stone. She picked it up, tossed it to her left. The man turned toward the sound. She fired. Silence stretched. Finally, the forest grew still enough that she realized something. There were no more footsteps. No more voices. No more shadows closing in. Just the fog, shifting lazily through the trees as if nothing had happened at all. She stood slowly, every muscle protesting, her breathing uneven, her ribs screaming, a metallic taste coating her tongue. The clearing was littered with bodies. Too many. All because she couldn't let the canyon Marines die. All because she couldn't walk away from Danny's ghost. She wiped blood from her cheek. She didn't know if it was hers or theirs. Then she heard it. A whimper. Small, soft. Evan. She spun, rifle raised. But when she located the sound, it wasn't hostility. It was a terrified teenager curled against a stump, shaking so violently he could barely breathe. "Hey," she said gently, lowering her weapon. "It's okay, Evan, you're okay." He flinched when she approached. "It's me," she said softly, "Laura." His wide eyes locked onto hers. Are they gone?" She nodded, "For now." He looked past her at the tree line, at the bodies, at the shadows still swaying from branches. His breath hitched. "You killed them." She swallowed. "I defended myself, and you." Evan's lower lip trembled. "Why did they want you?" She didn't have an answer he needed to hear. Not right now. She knelt to his level. "Listen to me carefully. We need to get back to the cabin. Moore will be looking for us." Evan wiped his face with a shaky hand. "I didn't mean to. I wasn't spying, I just—" "Evan," she placed a hand on his shoulder, "you did nothing wrong." He nodded weakly. They moved through the woods carefully, Laura leading, Evan staying a hand's length behind. She listened for footsteps, branches, breathing. Nothing. But the quiet felt heavy, wrong. When they reached the clearing outside her cabin, her entire body locked. A vehicle was parked beside the porch. Not federal. Not local law enforcement. A forest green pickup. Tyler. She felt a rush of relief until she saw him. He stood on the porch, hands clenched at his sides, shirt torn, a blood streak across his cheek. "Ty," she called quietly. His head snapped up. The moment he saw her, something shattered inside him. He rushed forward and pulled her into a tight embrace, the kind that wasn't afraid but desperate. "Laura," he choked out, "you're alive." She sagged into him, letting his warmth pull her back from the sniper's cold. After a moment he pulled back, looking her over. "You're hurt." "Not badly." "You're covered in blood." "Not all mine." His jaw clenched in a way that made her worry. "Moore told me to stay inside. He said if you weren't back in 15 minutes, he'd go in after you." "Where is he?" Tyler gestured toward the tree line. Then Moore emerged, breathing hard, mud on his boots, pistol in hand. The look in his eyes when he saw Laura was something she couldn't decipher, some storm of relief, anger, fear, and something else she wasn't ready to name. He stepped closer. "You're injured," he said. "Not critical. You shouldn't have engaged alone." She bristled. "I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," he said, voice clipped but not unkind. "Just not always a good one." Evan stepped out from behind her. Moore's hardened expression softened instantly. "Kid," he breathed, "you okay?" "And no," Evan stammered, "but she saved me." Moore nodded slowly and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Then you're safe now." But Laura knew better. She could feel it, like a pressure under her skin. They weren't safe. Not even close. Moore turned back to her. "The cartel knows your name," he said softly. "They know your face, and they're not going to stop." Tyler's expression hardened into something dark. "Then we fight back." "No," Laura said. They both looked at her. Her voice trembled only slightly. "You saw what they sent tonight, and that wasn't even a fraction of what they can send." Tyler's voice rose. "Laura." "No," she said again, stronger. Moore stepped closer. "Then what do you suggest?" She took a breath that felt like a blade going down. "We don't fight back." Moore and Tyler exchanged a stunned look. Laura met their eyes. "We go after them." Her voice hardened. "All the way to the source." Silence. Then Moore whispered, "You're talking about war." She nodded once. "No," she said, "I'm talking about ending one." Why did the word war taste different on her tongue now? Less like violence and more like inevitability. Laura stood rigid on the porch, the cold mountain air pressing against her bruised ribs, her palms still trembling faintly from the adrenaline crash. Tyler stared at her as if she just announced she intended to burn the whole forest down. Moore said nothing. He only watched her with that unsettling steadiness, the kind that made her feel simultaneously seen and cornered. Evan hovered behind Tyler, pale and silent, clearly trying to make himself small. Laura met Moore's eyes. They won't stop coming. He didn't argue. Tyler crossed his arms. So your plan is to just what? March into cartel territory alone. Not alone, she said. You think I'm letting you go anywhere without backup, Tyler snapped. Moore cut in, calm but firm. She's not wrong. They know she's a variable now, a sniper who nearly wiped out half their team. That kind of embarrassment gets answered fast in their world. They'll come at her harder next time. Laura felt those words in her bones. Next time. The phrase carried weight, not fear, certainty. She walked to the porch railing, placing a hand against the rough, weather-worn wood, grounding herself. I saw one thing tonight I can't ignore. Moore stepped closer. The woman. She nodded. She wasn't with them by choice. She wasn't even resisting. She was defeated, terrified, but not in the way someone kidnapped is terrified. It was different. Moore exhaled sharply. Stockholm. No, Laura said. Something else, something broken. The fog shifted through the tree line behind them, like the night itself was listening. Tyler ran a hand through his hair. Laura, no civilian should have been out there with those guys. This wasn't a routine smuggling run. Something bigger is going on. Moore's jaw tightened, and she's still out there. There it was. The truth she'd been avoiding. Laura rubbed a thumb along the edge of the railing. She looked at the commander like she was hoping he'd tell her what to do, like she didn't trust her own instinct to survive anymore. Moore's gaze softened. You recognized it. She nodded once. Because she'd been that person, 3 years ago, on the rooftop, looking at Danny, at his body, feeling her own will to live collapse under the pressure of guilt. She had walked off that battlefield breathing, but she hadn't survived. Not really. Moore stepped forward. Laura, if we want to find her, we can't stay in these woods waiting for the cartel to make the next move. I know, she whispered. He continued, voice low. The cartel needs to stamp out threats quickly, and publicly. They'll come after you. They'll come after Evan for seeing them. They might even come after Tyler because of his connection to you. Tyler swallowed hard. Moore finished quietly. We can't let them dictate the battlefield. Laura met his eyes. Then we take the battlefield from them. Something in Moore's expression shifted, respect maybe, or acceptance. He nodded once. That means going offensive, he said. Finding their roots, their safe houses, their network. This isn't local law enforcement territory anymore. Tyler grabbed the railing. You're talking about dragging my sister into a federal operation. Moore turned to him. I'm talking about stopping a cartel cell before they kill more civilians. She's a civilian, Tyler shot back. She's not. She's not, Moore's voice dropped. She just held off an entire strike team tonight. You think she's a civilian? Laura flinched. She didn't want to hear that. Didn't want the sniper she'd buried carved back out of her bones. Tyler looked between them, torn. Even if she is what you say, she's still my sister. I already lost one person I cared about to a uniform. I'm not losing her too. Laura turned fully toward him. Ty, I'm not doing this because they want me. I'm doing it because that woman is still out there. You don't even know her, Tyler said. I know what she looked like, Laura said softly. I know what she felt like, and I know that if I walk away now, she dies. Silence. The kind that isn't quiet at all, just heavy. Moore glanced at Evan. Kid, you need medical attention and somewhere safe to stay. I can get you into protective custody tonight. Evan shook his head violently. No, my parents, they'll freak out if I disappear, and if the cartel comes for them. We won't let them, Tyler said firmly. You're staying with me tonight. Evan looked terrified but relieved. Okay. Moore turned back to Laura. We move at dawn. Move where? Tyler demanded. Moore answered without looking away from Laura. Where the trail leads. Laura's stomach tightened. You already traced them. Moore nodded. We found tire tracks heading toward the cliffs near Pine Hollow. That's not a random spot. It's a dead zone for cell service, no ranger patrols, and a perfect place to stash a hostage. If the woman is alive, she'll be there. Laura inhaled, slow, controlled, the sniper creeping back into her lungs whether she wanted it or not. Tyler shook his head hard. No, absolutely not. You're injured, Laura. Look at you. You're shaking. She looked at her hands. He was right. They trembled in small, involuntary spasms. Moore stepped closer. Those are adrenaline withdrawals. They'll pass. But the longer we wait, the more likely they move her. Laura could feel it, time slipping like water between fingers. Tyler's voice cracked. Laura, please, you just came back to me. I can't watch you walk into a war again. She stepped forward and cupped his face with her hands. I'm not walking into a war, she whispered. I'm walking toward someone who needs me. Tears swelled in his eyes. He shut them tightly, leaning into her palms. Laura, I don't want you to be a ghost again. The words hit her harder than any punch she'd taken tonight. A ghost. That's exactly what she had been. She pressed her forehead against his. Then let me finish what I couldn't finish last time. His breath trembled. I'm scared. I know, she whispered. The porch light flickered as a heavy gust of wind blew through the trees. The fog shifted, curling around the cabin like a warning. Moore stepped closer, quiet, controlled. We leave at first light, 3 hours. Tyler looked up sharply. I'm coming with you. No, Laura said instantly. Yes, he snapped. I won't let you go alone. You're law enforcement, not military, she argued. He grabbed a shotgun from beside the door. Doesn't matter. No way I'm sitting home waiting for a call. Moore assessed him for a moment. He comes. We'll need someone who knows these woods as well as she does. Laura swallowed. Moore turned to her. Get some rest, you'll need it. Rest. The word felt foreign. As if she'd earned sleep. As if sleep wouldn't be filled with the dead eyes of the men she killed tonight. As if she wouldn't hear Danny's voice again in the quiet. But she nodded. She walked inside the cabin. Moore lingered at the doorway, watching her with something almost gentle beneath the hardened exterior. You did well tonight, he said softly. I didn't do it for you. I know, he murmured, but you still did it. His gaze lingered a moment too long, then he stepped back into the darkness. Tyler and Evan followed him out. Laura shut the cabin door. She leaned against it, just for a second, as her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her ribs throbbed, her head spun, her legs felt like they barely belonged to her. She slid down the door until she was sitting on the wooden floor. Then she whispered to the empty room. Danny, I don't know if I can do this again. The silence didn't answer, but something inside her shifted anyway. Not certainty. Not courage. Just the quiet acceptance of what tomorrow demanded. Outside, the fog thickened across the mountains. Somewhere far off, a wolf howled. The wind carried the sound through the forest like a warning and a promise. Dawn was coming. And with it, the reckoning. Why did dawn feel heavier than night? Like the light itself carried judgment for whatever she was about to become again. The first hint of sunrise barely touched the ridge when Laura stepped out onto the porch, rifle slung across her back, jacket zipped tight against the mountain chill. Her muscles ached. Her ribs screamed each time she inhaled. Her hands still trembled now and then, tiny rebellions she tried to hide. But her eyes were steady. For the first time in 3 years, they were steady. Moore stood beside one of the SUVs, speaking quietly into a secure handset. Tyler checked ammunition, loading shells into his shotgun with a calmness that didn't reach his eyes. Evan wasn't there. Tyler had dropped him with the local ranger, hidden deep in the mountains, guarded until this was over. Lara walked toward Moore. He lowered the handset. "You slept." She shook her head. He nodded once, as if that was the answer he expected. "Any movement?" she asked. "Drone picked up heat signatures near Pine Hollow," Moore said. "It's them, not many, maybe 4 or 5. Armed?" "Always." Tyler joined them, shouldering a small pack. "Let's get this done." Laura hesitated. Something wasn't right. Something in her gut twisted sharply. She looked at Moore. "You said 4 or 5, that's too few." "I know," he said, "which means either they're splitting operations or they moved the hostage," Laura finished. Moore nodded grimly. "We have to assume she's still there until proven otherwise." Tyler locked the SUV. "We're burning daylight." They moved out. The road to Pine Hollow was more a suggestion than a path, a series of steep turns, loose rock slides, broken tree trunks, and enough blind corners to make even local rangers avoid it without necessity. Pines crowded the edge of the cliffs, their branches heavy with dew. Laura watched the landscape pass through the window. Her mind did what it always did before a mission: shut down emotion and inventory reality. Wind, light, elevation, cover, escape routes. Moore drove. Tyler rode shotgun. Laura sat in the back, hands clasped in her lap, forcing them still. Her breathing stayed controlled. But inside, deep inside, something small and scared twisted like a trapped animal. Danny's face flickered through her mind again. And Madison. And the woman's haunted eyes. The ghosts of who she'd failed and who she still might fail. She closed her eyes. The vehicle slowed. "Here," Moore said. They got out quietly. The forest at dawn felt too calm, too peaceful, birds calling faintly, wind whispering through the branches. It didn't match the dread in her chest. They followed the trail on foot, moving in a tight formation. Tyler took point through the narrowest passes. Moore scanned for movement. Laura took the rear, rifle positioned for a long shot if needed. As they approached the ridge overlooking Pine Hollow, Tyler froze. "You hear that?" he whispered. Laura listened. At first, nothing. Then a faint crack, soft, precise. A branch snapping. Moore raised a hand. "Positions." They crouched behind a fallen log. Laura lifted her scope. And her blood chilled. 4 figures. Cartel muscle. Standing outside the mouth of a small cavern. And in front of them, a woman. Kneeling. Hands bound. Head down. Her. Alive. Barely. Laura's breath caught. The woman didn't look terrified anymore. She looked hollow, emptied out, a shell waiting for whatever command decided her fate. "We move on my mark," Moore whispered. But Laura wasn't listening. Her scope drifted across the scene, searching, hunting, reading. Then she saw it. A 5th figure deeper in the cave. Standing very still. With a radio. Waiting. Her stomach dropped. "It's a trap," she whispered. Moore looked at her sharply. "Explain." "Look at their formation," she hissed. "Too spaced out, too open, no overwatch, no perimeter. They're baiting us. They want us to come to her." Tyler swallowed. "And then what?" "Ambush," she said. "Minimum 8 more hiding in the rock shelves or behind the ridge wall." Moore's jaw clenched. "They know we're coming." "No. Not we." "Me," she whispered. Moore turned fully. "Laura." She breathed in, forcing herself calm. "They want me to show myself. They want to draw me in." Tyler scowled. "Then we don't give them what they want." Laura lowered her rifle. "They'll kill her if we don't." Silence thudded heavy around them. Moore's voice was low. We need a plan. Laura closed her eyes for a second. She pictured the cavern entrance, the shape of the rocks, the incline, the wind direction. Then the answer came. I'll go down alone. Absolutely not, Tyler snapped. Moore turned, eyes narrowed. You step into that clearing, you won't walk out. Laura stood. I'm not planning to walk out. Tyler grabbed her wrist, voice shaking. I already lost one person I loved because the mission mattered more than their life. I can't lose you too. She turned to him, eyes soft. Ty, I'm not choosing the mission over my life. He stared, breath uneven. I'm choosing her life, she whispered, because someone once chose mine. Tyler shook his head, tears threatening. Not again, Lord, don't disappear on me again. She pulled him into a tight embrace. I'll come back, I promise. He didn't believe it. She didn't blame him. Moore stepped beside her. If you go down there, you're not going without cover. I'll have it, she said. But from far, you and Ty stay here. If they fire at me, take them. Moore nodded slowly. What's your move? Laura exhaled. Surrender. Tyler recoiled. Have you lost your damn mind? It's the only way, she said. They want me alive, they won't shoot immediately. That buys you time. Time to do what? Tyler demanded. To get a clean angle on the commander. Moore's eyes widened. You think killing him will stop the others? It'll break their chain of command, she said, and give us seconds to get her out. Seconds, Moore repeated. This isn't a hero play, it's suicide. No, she whispered, it's redemption. Moore studied her long and hard. Then nodded once. We move on your signal. Laura nodded back and stepped out of cover. The descent felt impossibly long. Every crunch of dirt beneath her boots echoed like a countdown. The cartel guards snapped their heads toward her, guns lifting. Laura lifted her empty hands. I'm here, she called out. The commander stepped from the cave's mouth, pale, thin, blood on his collar. Not the one she'd shot. His brother. She knew instantly by the resemblance. A twisted smile spread across his face. Laura Sheffield, he said softly, finally. She stopped 10 yards away, close enough that they believed they controlled her, far enough that she still had angles. You came for the woman, he said. Why? She doesn't belong to you. And you do. The question cut deeper than she expected. He stepped closer. You killed my men, you stole from me. You think I let you walk away? Laura kept her voice steady. You don't want me dead. Oh, he smiled. You're right, not yet. Behind him, the woman lifted her head just slightly. Her eyes, empty, pleading, lost. Laura's throat tightened. The commander gestured lazily. Get on your knees. Laura didn't move. On your knees. Slowly, painfully, she lowered herself. But she wasn't surrendering. She was positioning. She looked up at the woman, softly, gently. It's okay, she whispered. You're going home. The woman's lip trembled. The commander lifted his handgun. Laura inhaled. Now, she whispered. A gunshot cracked the air. Not his. More. The commander's body jerked backward as a bullet tore through his throat. Chaos erupted. Laura lunged toward the woman, cutting the zip ties with her knife. Run. Gunfire exploded. Moore fired again. Tyler shouted. The cartel scattered, disoriented by the sudden loss of command. Laura pulled the woman behind a rock. You're safe, she whispered. But the woman shook her head violently. No, 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 he wasn't hurting me. Laura froze. What? The woman sobbed. He was protecting me. The ground shifted beneath Laura. What are you talking about? They were going to kill me, the woman cried. But he hid me. He kept me alive. Laura stared at the woman, really stared. And the truth hit her like a punch. This woman wasn't a hostage. She was a defector, a cartel bookkeeper, the one person who knew where the entire network's money flowed. The cartel wasn't keeping her prisoner. They were trying to keep her alive. Laura's breath cracked. She had misread everything. Tyler called out from the ridge, "Laura, move." But she didn't. Not right away. Because the woman's trembling whisper broke something inside her. "I didn't want to be saved." They reached the top of the ridge 10 minutes later, gunfire silenced, the enemy scattered. The woman sat wrapped in a blanket in the SUV, shaking but alive. Moore approached Laura slowly. "You okay?" "No," she whispered. "I was wrong about her." Moore nodded. "We all make the wrong call sometimes. It could have gotten her killed." "But it didn't," he said softly, "because you acted and she's alive." Tyler placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did good, Laura." She didn't answer. She was staring at her trembling hands. Hands that had saved lives. Taken lives. Chosen path she wasn't sure she had the right to choose. Moore's voice softened. "You don't have to be perfect, you just have to keep showing up." Laura lifted her eyes. To him. To Tyler. To the forest. To the rising sun. The weight inside her loosened just slightly. Not gone. But lighter. She whispered, more to herself than anyone. "Sometimes dignity doesn't speak." Moore tilted his head. "What does it do?" Laura looked at her hands again. "It simply acts."